Hi, this is 7 Star with the Center for Self-Compassion, and this is the online course, The Path of Courage, Self-Care During Crisis. This is part 2 of the course. It's called Remembering Your Purpose. We did part 1 last week, and last week's class was Caring for Your Emotions. And if you missed that one, the video for that one is still up on YouTube, so you can catch that one if you would like to join us for the Zoom meeting this Thursday. So this Thursday night at 7 p.m. we will have a Zoom meeting, and we can talk about how the class is going for you so far, go over the activities that we're going to do in this video and in the last video as well, and do some new things. So again, this is part 2 of the course, and it's called Remembering Your Purpose. Now, every human, underneath whatever the circumstances of their particular life is, every human has the same purpose. That main purpose is to return to your true nature. Now, the true nature of a human, or what I call the true self, is open, loving awareness. It's present, curious, and fully expressive, and also non-personal. So you can think of the way a baby is. Now, a baby is open to the world. They're very, very present and very curious about what's here right now. So that you can see, and by their body movements and their facial expression, they have that open expression, I'm here. Who are you? What's this? Right? And a lot of people respond very positively to that. And the reason is that it returns us immediately to our own true nature, which is to also be in the world that way. And we all remember how to do it. And when you're around a baby, it's like it gives you an excuse to do that. And you feel so good, and you love being around them when they're like that. So you can think of, visualize a baby, a happy baby, if that helps you to think about your own true nature. The reason why I say it's non-personal is because it isn't something that you do to make yourself a certain kind of person. So you're not open and curious and loving because it makes you a good person. It's not really about, who you are as a personal self. It's just being. So a baby isn't being open and curious and loving because they're on this spiritual path to be that way and they're practicing compassion. It's just their true nature. So being yourself, or being your true nature, or existing as your true nature, is not doing anything. So this is very important, because a lot of people think that it's something you're going to do or be. Returning to your true nature is a cessation of not being yourself. So there's all kinds of behaviors that we do that I call not being yourself, such as denying, avoiding, suppressing, drowning out, judging, shaming, what have you. These behaviors are keeping us from being our true nature. So when we're doing those behaviors, we're busy doing those behaviors. As soon as we stop doing those behaviors, here we are. True nature's right here. So again, your true nature, your true self, is not something you do or be or become at all. It's already your true nature. It's who you are. Only when you're busy looking somewhere else, doing something else, do you not realize, are you not aware of your true nature? Because you're doing something else. As soon as you stop doing that, oh, here it is. Just like if you're driving along thinking about all your problems, and suddenly you look out the window and it's a gorgeous sunset. And you just, in that moment, you're nobody. You forgot to be someone with a body and thoughts and feelings and problems and girlfriends and boyfriends and children, and it's not there. You're just being. That's your true nature. So the purpose of our class today is to recognize how you are not being yourself so that you can stop those behaviors. When you do that, you return to your true nature. Okay? So, everyone has a little different way of accomplishing this because the ways in which we deny our true selves are all different because we all have different minds, personalities, bodies, and life situations. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a couple exercises to recognize your own personal journey. So the things that you personally do to not be yourself. So there are 3 parts to this. You're going to ask yourself, how am I not myself? When am I not myself? And with whom am I not myself? So, the first question, how am I not myself? We're going to investigate a couple different areas. So if you remember, I said that your true nature is open and curious, aware and present, loving, and expressive and non-personal. So I want you to think of a time when you were young, when you were a child, like under 10, and you were expressing your feelings. Now, this is not expressing a want or need or asking for something. This is just an expression of emotion. So you are expressing sadness, or you are expressing pain, or you are expressing happiness and excitement, or you are expressing anger. And the person who is your primary caregiver, which could be your mother or father, or whoever else was responsible for taking care of you. You know, if you had an extended family taking care of you, or you were in a group home or in a hospital or foster home or what have you. So whoever was responsible for modeling self-compassion for you and taking care of you, responding to your needs, that primary person, how did they emotionally abandon you? So the opposite of self-compassion is self-abandonment, what I also call self-betrayal or self-hatred. So self-love would be being with, you are awareness, aware of the self, and you are with the self, and you are loving the self. And then self-hatred would just be the opposite of that. You are denying the self, avoiding the self, abandoning the self, punishing the self, judging the self. This is all what I call self-hatred. So self-hatred or self-abandonment is something that you learn from other people, because babies don't do this. It's learned behavior. So your primary caregiver had a response that was not compassionate when you expressed a feeling. So you said to your mom, I feel sad. I'm so sad because Rover died and it's terrible and I feel so sad. And your mother abandoned you emotionally. So that means that she was not present with you and responsive to you and supportive to you in expressing that emotion. So that can look like a variety of things. It can be in a kind of an active acting out kind of way, like directly scolding you or shaming you for expressing that feeling. Like stop crying or stop complaining, or just making a face that, like a disgusted face, like, are you crying again? Are you still crying about that? Shaming you. Or it can just be a lack of responsiveness. So just like a no response, like silence, or actually physically moving away or staying away, physically away from you while you're having that feeling. It could be complaining about it. There's a wide variety of things. But so hopefully all of you can think back and think of a time when something like that happened. Hopefully it would be from your primary caregiver. And the reason is that these things are repeated because your primary caregiver will have a certain style that they do over and over, and then you will internalize that style. So you will treat yourself that way. So if your primary caregiver ignored you when you expressed feelings, then you will internalize that, and you will learn that that's the appropriate way to treat yourself when you're having feelings. So you will ignore yourself. Or you may go the other way and overindulge yourself because you're trying to do the opposite because you knew that that was wrong or you're angry about that. So those are kind of one of two ways that you'll go. So you'll either internalize the caregiver's model, or you will rebel against the caregiver's model and do the opposite, which will be the other end, the other unhealthy end of the spectrum. So I'll be quiet now and let you write down a time when your caregiver abandoned you emotionally and what that looked like. What did your caregiver do? Okay, and if you need more time for writing that, you can pause the video. So that is the how you were abandoned. Now the next part is, when do I abandon myself? So how I abandon myself. So either you copied your caregiver's way of abandoning yourself. So if your mother ignored you, then you ignore yourself. So for example, your mother would ignore you or be ashamed of you when you would express anger. Then when you get older, you suppress your anger because you learned that it's not appropriate. So you've internalized your caregiver's model of self-hatred, and now you're actively practicing that. So I want you to think about when you do that as an adult. When do you do something very similar to what your caregiver did when you were young? So think about times when you've had feelings that you did not think were appropriate, or you were judging yourself like, this is not okay. If I think this, then I'm a bad person. If I feel this way, I'm a bad person. Or maybe you're not even getting that far. You just think it's unseemly to express certain feelings. Or if you're a woman, maybe girls don't act that way, or it's not attractive, or any number of things that your parents may have told you when you're growing up about why it's not okay to have certain feelings or to express those feelings. So I want you to think about how you do that as an adult. And again, so you could be actually doing that, or you could be doing the opposite. So when are you doing what you learned from your caregiver, or the opposite of that? So you're someone who's constantly telling everyone what's going on with you and crying at inappropriate times and oversharing and things like that. So you might do that because you feel like, well, no one listened to me when I was growing up, and now I just say whatever I want. And so this is the other unhealthy extreme. So you may do either of those two things. So when do you do that as an adult? And think of a couple different scenarios, and I want you to maybe write out a habit or a pattern that you have, or if you want to just think of one example when you've done that to yourself, when you've had certain feelings. Okay, if you need more time, then you can pause the video. Now, another part of when you abandon yourself is when you are, as an adult, trying to force someone else or something else to give you that which you did not receive from your caregiver when you were supposed to. So there could be a lot of different examples, but like oversharing or just blabbing your feelings, it could be one of them. So you are trying to get other people to listen to you, to be present for you, to pay attention to you and how you feel, and to be supportive. So you may be going to all different kinds of people, inappropriate people, or doing that at inappropriate times, or expressing yourself when that's not that wouldn't be the responsible thing to do, or when the other person is not receptive. So what is it your caregiver did not do? So they abandoned you emotionally, so they did not listen to you and how you felt and what was going on with you, and they weren't present for you. So what kind of things do you do as an adult to try to get other people, to force other people to do that for you? Like talking to people when they're not listening, or when they aren't listening, being very, very angry, or when you feel like they're not being present enough with you or paying enough attention to you or appreciating you, you get very, very angry. So these would be some examples. It's like you didn't get that from your caregiver and you're trying to write a different ending to that story. So you're trying to force someone to be that mother that your mother wasn't. So just think about a couple examples or some habitual behaviors that you do to try to get other people to be present for you and listen to you when you have certain feelings. So if you need more time on that, you can pause the video. I just wanted to say a word about being in relationship with other people. So the way that you treat other people is simply a projection of the way you treat yourself. So the relationship you have with yourself is the same as the relationships you'll have with other people. So when you do things to other people, that's because you're doing those things to yourself as well. So all compassion is self-compassion, as I said before. It all starts with being able to be here, be present and be responsive and caring to your own self. And then by extension, whoever else is in that space where you are open, present, and loving. So one thing that people tend to do is you have a certain style of self-abandonment, and you also judge the kind of person you are based on whether or not you're doing that. So, for example, if you suppress, when you have anger, you suppress your anger, you judge yourself on a personal level. So remember I said the true self is non-personal. So when you're not being yourself, you're identified with the false self. So you're identified with a person who's not really there. There's anger arising and you think, I'm angry. I am the anger. The anger is me. And because of that, I think anger is bad, therefore I'm a bad person. So then you practice this suppression or judgment, or you punish yourself, or whatever your abandonment style is. And then when you see other people not doing that, you're judging them. So if you think it's not okay to express anger and you don't let yourself express anger, then when you see other people doing that, it angers you. Because no one should get to act like that. You shouldn't act like that. Can't they keep it together? So see, it just goes around. So you had feelings. Your mother told you it's not okay to express those feelings. So you said, okay, yeah, I believe you. You internalized that system. And now whenever you see other people out there, you do exactly what she did. You judge them and you're condemning them. They shouldn't be doing that, because doing that makes them a bad person. So I just wanted to note that, because the third question is, with whom are you not yourself? And we are going to talk about your relationships after this next part. Okay, so the next part is related to being responsive. So remember, you're open, curious, and present, and you're loving. So loving means that you attune to the self, you listen to the self, and then you care for the self. So you're listening to what the needs and wants of the self are so that you can take care of them. It's not just to go, oh, that's nice. You want a glass of water? Well, good luck with that. You want to respond to the wants and needs. So I want you to do a similar thing to what we did last time with expressing feelings. I want you to think back to a time when you were a child under the age of 10 and you expressed something that you wanted or needed, and your caregiver responded by not responding, by shaming you, by punishing you, by moving away, by being disgusted, by telling you, by complaining about what you need, or just telling you to shut up or go away, or again, just physically leaving or turning away or not responding. So, or there could be more that you might think of that I'm not thinking of right now. So again, I want you to think of a time when you had a want or a need. You needed food, or you needed to go to the doctor, or you needed new clothes, or you needed new sheets for your bed, or you needed attention, or you needed quiet time, and your caregiver did not respond to that need, did not take care of that need, and abandoned you when you had that need or want. Okay, and if you need more time, you can pause the video. So now I want you to think of, as an adult, think of a time when you had a need or want and you abandoned yourself in a similar way to how your caregiver abandoned you when you were young. And keep in mind, it could be the opposite. So you could actively suppress your needs and wants. One of the things that surprised me when I started working as a counselor was how many people cannot answer the question, what do you really want? A lot of people don't know. They're so unaccustomed to being with their authentic self that they don't even know it's there. They're just constantly reacting to whatever is happening out there. Oh, this is happening. I'll take care of that. This is happening. Okay, I'll do this. I'll do this. And they're never looking at their authentic self and seeing what their self actually wants or needs. So they could be 50, 60, 70 years old and never really have thought about whether or not they need anything or want anything, and forget about what it might be. So I want you to think about, as an adult, how you do this. So you could either suppress or be unaware of what you want or need, or when you have a want or need, you could feel embarrassed and ashamed and be critical of yourself. Or you could do the opposite, where you're super self-indulgent and you don't deny yourself anything, which can wreak havoc on your life and the lives of other people. So it could be either of those two ways. And this all has to do with responsibility. So another way of saying self-care is to use the word responsibility. So you have a body and you have a mind, you have a personality, and those things are things, and things have boundaries. And you are responsible for taking care of those things and making sure that they don't hurt other people. So you could grow up to be someone who avoids responsibility by suppressing your needs and not listening to them, or suppressing your wants and not listening to them. Or you could go the other way and be indulging your every whim and therefore being irresponsible by trampling on other people's rights or boundaries, because you don't have any. You don't have boundaries on yourself. So you can think about both of those, either of those two ends of the spectrum. So again, how do you abandon yourself when you have wants and needs? Okay, so if you need more time, you can pause the video. And now I want to say a similar thing about relationships, like the way I talked about when you're expressing your feelings and you're trying to get certain needs met now that weren't met in childhood. So when you had wants or needs that were not responded to or taken care of when you were a child, now I want you to think about, as an adult, how do you try to control things or people to force them to give you what you want or need? So this is another way of avoiding responsibility. So you're not taking care of yourself. You're trying to force someone else to do it for you. This now it can be a little tricky because of course you want to be able to ask people for things. But I'm talking about things that you should be doing for yourself. So, such as being financially responsible, right? Taking care of your finances, your life situation, your things, your body. So a way of taking care of yourself could be to ask for help if you need help, but not to have someone else taking it over for you. So you might go to a financial analyst to get advice. That's fine. That's a form of self-care, but you're taking the lead. It would be just like if you had a small child who was struggling in school, you would go to the appropriate person who can help them with that. So you would go to the school and say, this is what my child needs. You're advocating for their needs. And that may involve asking other people for help. This is, so I'm not talking about asking other people for help. I'm talking about not taking care of yourself. So an example might be you hurt yourself or you're really sick and you won't take care of yourself and you won't go to the doctor. So then you end up being a burden on other people or being annoying to them because you're sick or you're hurt or you're complaining and you're in pain and you won't take care of it. So like that. Going to the doctor, you are asking the doctor for help, and that's a responsible thing to do. So ignoring your wants or needs or refusing to grow up, refusing to be responsible because you are waiting for someone else to do it for you. Because if you start taking care of yourself, then the whole fantasy of mom or dad or whomever coming to save you and take care of everything like they were supposed to when you were little, that fantasy is over, and you'll have to face the grief of not having had that. So anytime you are faced with what you did not receive when you were a child, you, instead of acting out and trying to get those things from the external world now in a way that's not appropriate, it's an opportunity for you to simply grieve the loss of not receiving what you needed when you needed it. Because it is a loss, it's final, it's over. You cannot go back and be a child. So now you will take care of yourself. You are your primary caregiver. And so you're learning how to fulfill that role yourself. And if you didn't learn it from your primary caregiver, that's okay. Because here we are, learning. So you don't want to give up that role. You take responsibility for you. So I want you to think about in, your relationships with other people, how do you abdicate responsibility and try to force other people to meet your wants and needs, that you really are responsible for you to take care of yourself. Okay, if you need more time, you can pause the video. I want to say a little bit about acting in and acting out because sometimes it can be very confusing, and that's okay. It's not really super important. But basically, acting in is a way of abandoning yourself where you are suppressing your authentic self, your wants and needs, your feelings or thoughts. And your intention with that is not necessarily to get something from the external world or to punish the external world. So it's much more you versus you. So you're punishing yourself, or you're suppressing yourself, you're abandoning yourself. Acting out would be like what I just mentioned, which is where you're going out to the external world and now engaging the external world in your personal drama, your inner drama, where you're trying to force the external world to meet your needs, and or acting out your feelings on something external. So if you think about a basic example of drug addiction, there could be acting out or acting in or both. So the acting in part of doing drugs would be using the drugs to suppress your authentic self. So to avoid feelings or to pretend like you have no feelings. So that's the acting in part. The acting out part would be like sometimes you see younger people who become drug addicts and they really are throwing it in their parents' faces. So they're using the drug addiction to try to punish their parents or to try to force their parents to finally step in and take care of them because the parents so far haven't done that. So that would be the acting out part. But sometimes that part isn't intentional, it's not included, so there's no acting out, it's just acting in. Or it could be just acting out, and they're not really avoiding their own feelings. They're doing that behavior to punish their parents and to try to force their parents to finally take care of them, or to see them, or to acknowledge their feelings, or any of the things that they didn't receive. The other thing I want to say is that if you do a lot of acting in behaviors, such as not expressing your feelings, or not taking care of yourself, or denying your wants or needs, or hiding or lying about what's really going on with you, you may think that you're only doing that to yourself. And I do call it acting in, but acting in has a huge effect on the people that interact with you because you are not actually having intimacy with them. So you're denying them the opportunity to have intimacy with you and to really get to know you. And also you'll be violating other people's boundaries, like I was saying before, where if you won't go to the doctor and you're sick, then you may be showing up late to work or missing a lot of work, or you might be really annoying because you're complaining all the time, or someone else might have to take care of you. Or if you're someone who can't get it together enough to get a driver's license, then someone else always has to pick you up and drive you around. Or if you can't ever get together enough money to do XYZ, you're always asking people for money or whatever. You may be doing these things to yourself where you're ignoring your needs or ignoring your authentic self, but those acting in behaviors affect other people greatly. So I wouldn't call that acting out because it's not intentional. That's not your intention. However, obviously acting in has a huge effect on the world out there and other people. So, since we're talking about the world out there and other people, now I want to look at some of the relationships you have in your life. So far you've made some notes about behaviors that you do to abandon yourself. So how you abandon yourself, what you do, and when you do that. So times when you do that, when you have certain feelings, or when you have certain wants and needs, or you're around certain people. So you have these behaviors that you do. And I want you to put that aside for a minute. And I just want you to write down the names of 5 people, or less if you have less than 5 people who are prominent in your life, who you see often and have what you would consider a pretty intimate relationship with. So 5 people. Okay, so now I want you to look at your list of people and look at your list of behaviors. And I want you to think about, for each of those 5 people, which of those people are co-conspirators with you in doing those behaviors. So when I say co-conspirator, I mean that you're in a relationship with a person who supports the behavior that you do to avoid being your true nature. So some of the things that are actually extremely unhealthy behaviors are deeply valued in our culture. And people might actually like those things about you or praise you for doing them. For example, if you never get angry, people might think you're such a nice person, but you're actually really emotionally unhealthy and you're hurting yourself. So do you have relationships or friends or family members or coworkers who support you in doing these unhealthy behaviors, who support you in abandoning yourself? So maybe you have, when you're having a really hard time, you call your friend Susan because you know Susan will go drinking with you. So Susan is your co-conspirator. Susan supports you in doing your self-abandonment behavior. So I want you to look at your list of people and think about each of them and the behaviors that you tend to do to abandon yourself and move away from your true nature, and think which of these people supports you in those behaviors, or praises you for those behaviors, or joins you in those behaviors. And I'll give you a few minutes actually to maybe make a few notes about that. Okay, if you need more time for that, you can pause the video. So now I'd like you to think about the people who support you in doing those behaviors, or people who you know do those behaviors and you know that you support them in doing those behaviors. And I want you to think about whether or not it would be possible to talk with them about a new approach to your relationship, or a new component to your relationship, kind of like a contract. So all relationships have contracts. There are things that you agree to do and that you agree to allow the other person to do, and they agree to do, and they agree to allow you to do. And you could draw up a new contract with very clear intention this time, that you would like to support each other in returning to your true nature and stopping the behaviors of self-abandonment. So you could ask the person, or you could say to the person, I am living my true purpose, which is for me to return to my true nature. This is really, really important to me, and I want to ask you to support me in doing that. So these are the behaviors that I tend to do, and I would like to stop doing these behaviors, and I'd like you to help and be supportive in me doing that. If there's anything for you that you would like me to support you with, etc., etc. Now, if you have relationships where that would seem impossible to do, then that's good information for you to have about that relationship. But if it would be possible, then I would encourage you to do that. Because Every single thing that happens in your life is all about waking up. No matter what circumstance is happening, or what body you have, or what people you know, or what kind of personality you have, or intelligence, or any of that, everything is about waking up from the dream of thinking you're who you think you are, the false self, identifying with that false self, and waking up to your true nature, which is just open, loving awareness. So when you're doing this exercise of noticing when you're abandoning yourself, etc., you are practicing being open, loving awareness. You are not, the purpose of all of these exercises is for you to practice being open, loving awareness, and to not be identified with any of the behaviors that you listed. They're just things that happened. It's just things that the self did. And now you're just looking at them. Doesn't mean anything about you. And I know that might sound a little crazy, because we are told that we are the sum of our behaviors, and that based on how many we have over here that were bad or embarrassing, and how many we have over here that were really cool, made us look awesome, then we're a good or bad person, and we're cool or we're a dork or whatever. So none of your behaviors that you do or ever have done mean anything about you. They don't make you good or bad. They don't make you anything. So again, we're just noticing behaviors that we're doing that are hurting us so we can stop. We're noticing them as open, loving awareness. So what you can do from now on is practice noticing what yourself is doing. So you're paying attention, you're tuning, you are open, loving awareness. What thoughts are here, what feelings are here, what am I doing? Am I abandoning myself? Am I running away? Am I punishing myself? Am I judging myself? And how am I doing that? So you can stop. And that is your life purpose. It's everyone's life purpose. And it's your right. Because your true self is totally, completely, and utterly free from any definition whatsoever. Absolutely free. There's nothing that you have ever done or said, or anyone has ever done or said, that means anything about you at all. And when you're looking at yourself as open, loving awareness, you can recognize that that open, loving awareness is absolutely free. And as soon as you're looking at your behavior, you are the looker and not the behavior. You are the awareness and not the feeling. So you just now moved to your true nature. Return to your true nature when you're observing what the self is doing. So you can invite your people in your life to be partners with you in doing this work of waking up. And you can model for them because you are practicing. So that is the end of Remembering Your Purpose. Now this Thursday, May 11, 12, 13, 14, this Thursday, May 14th at 7 o'clock, we will have a Zoom meeting and for an hour. And the link is posted in the email and in the course description. So I hope to see you all there. I will do some more activities. And one of the things that we will discuss, because I got a question about it, is when you are expressing your feelings to other people, how is it that you decide what is the emotionally healthy and appropriate way, and respectful way to communicate those thoughts, feelings, wants, and needs? So I said earlier, practicing self-compassion, part one is you are acknowledging the authentic self and being aware of your thoughts, feelings, wants, or needs, and then you may want or need to express those thoughts, feelings, wants, or needs to others. And you want to do that in a way that's not acting in and not acting out. So we will talk about that further on Thursday, this Thursday at 7 p.m. And again, the link is in the course description. And that's all I have for part 2. So thanks so much, everyone. And remember, you are not the self. You are the love that loves the self.